Next, to the commission section. This is where you define the commission for your sales reps. To do that, you simply click on the label commission, and it takes us to that section of the template. You notice the same formatting. We have the title at the top, and this tells us that this is where we have our commission tables. The template supports two types of commissions. You can track commission by value, that's the total value of the product that was sold by the sales reps, or by quantity, the total units of each product that was sold by the sales rep. So you notice we have two columns per table. So first we're going to cover the value table. This is made up of the ranges and the respective commission percentages. So we've added values by default. You can always double click and change this. This is not fixed. This is just for demonstration purposes. You can always modify to better suit your business. What you enter in the first column is the range. So what that means is that any transaction in which the total value is less than 500,000, so this is the upper limit. So you notice the upper limit less than or equal to. So if your transaction is less than 500,000, this is the commission that will be used. So less than 501,000. So that means 500,000 and below. If your commission rate is above 501,000 or equal to, but is less than 1,000,001, this is the commission rate that will be used. So the range is from 501,000 to 1.1 million. So there we go. The next range is any transaction that is above 1,000,001 but is less than 1.5 and just 1. So those are the ranges for each category. So that will be 5%. And then the last range will be any value that is above this. Now by value, we mean the total cost, the total price that the customer pays at the end of the day. So the value table works with the value of what was sold by the sales rep. Recall the sales reps are individuals that sell your retail goods to customers. So when they sell a particular product, this commission type make use of the total value of that sale. So these are the four ranges. From 0 to this, from this to this, and then from this to this, and then greater than this. Then the quantity table works exactly the same, but the only difference is that it works with the units of products sold. So some businesses work with quantity. They want you to sell more products, not necessarily at a higher price. So for instance, if you sell less than 200 units, or 200 or less, there's a 1% commission. If you sell from 201 to 500, this is the commission. From 501 to 1,000, this is the commission. And for 1,001 and above, this is the commission. Now, as I said, you can always double click and increase or decrease the commission rates. You can equally set the lower limits yourself. If you don't want to use 200, if you want to use 100, you can go ahead and change that to 100. So what I'm telling the template here is that from 0 to 99, this is the percentage of commission to use. From 100 to 500, this is the commission to use. From 501 to 1,000, this is the commission to use, and so on. So that's how you define your rates. So that's all you do here. It's just where you create or you edit your commission tables. So now that we've covered all that, next we're going to add customers. To do that, you go to the customer section, and it works exactly the same as the sales rep section. You notice the label at the top telling you this is your customer database, a button to delete, navigation pane at the top, and a table at the bottom to list all of your customers. To add a new customer, you just double click, type the name of the customer, tap to the next field. If you have the phone number, you go ahead and enter that. The email address, contact address, I'm going to leave that blank. So I'm just going to enter 2 customers, and I'm just going to enter only their phone numbers. I'm going to leave the other fields blank. They're optional. If you make a mistake, you can always double click and make the correction. So that's a summary of the customer section. It's just a database so that you can quickly retrieve customer information, and it's easier when you're generating your reports to filter by customer. So it's advisable to store your customers if they're frequent customers that you use on a frequent basis. Now that we've covered most of the source sections, so now we're actually going to go to the transaction sections, which is where you enter your daily sales. So we're going to enter our sales transactions to show you how we combine the source sheets together. In the sales section, we combine the sales rep plus the product plus the customer and the commission. So everything combines together to generate a transaction. Clicking on the sales label takes us to that section of the template. Notice it has a similar formatting. The title telling you list all of your sales here, your daily sales transactions. To the right 3 buttons to add a new sales, delete an existing sales, and also to navigate to your expenses section. Above this, we have our navigation pane, and below the 3 buttons, we have our table where all sales transactions will be listed. To add a new sales, you simply click on the first button, Add Sales, and just like other forms we've seen in this video, you simply supply values to the white portion of the form. So first, you need to tell the template when was this product sold. So I'm going to backdate to April and move to the next field. Now, I need to point out something. Functionalities have been added to the date field to prevent you from entering future transactions. So you enter transactions only for today, or you can backdate like I've done here, April 2019. So you can enter a past transaction. So if you purchase a template today, for instance, and you want to start backdates to the first of the year, you can always do that. Enter backlog of transactions, but you cannot enter future transactions. So if I change this to 2020 and I try to move away, you notice it prevents me from clicking on any field and prompts the message that says invalid dates. So functionalities have been added to prevent the user from entering future transactions. So whenever you see this prompt, there are two things you can do. First, you can delete what you've entered. So make sure that the cell is empty. So now you can click to other fields. Or alternatively, you make use of the escape key on your keyboard. So you simply press ESC and the template will automatically clear that field. So there are two things you can do. Invalid date, I can go ahead and type a new date. You notice it's correct. I can now click. Or if I have an invalid date, if I press the ESC on my keyboard, I can now click. So those are the two ways that you can quickly move across whenever you get this error prompt. I'm going to change this to the 1st of April 2019. And another field that we've added that functionality to is the date field. So here you're allowed to enter only numbers. This is just to avoid data entry errors. So if you go ahead and enter characters, you notice you get numbers only. And in the same way, once you get this red, you cannot click in other cells. It prevents you from doing any other form of transaction to this form until you solve this problem here. Now, the two ways you can solve this problem is by either typing a number and moving away, or you can make use of the ESC keyboard. So once you press the ESC, it clears it, and then you can now move across. Okay, so those functionalities have been added not only to this form, to all data entry forms with a date field. So if I go back to, for instance, my expense section, and I click on new expense, you notice the same thing. I can't enter a future expense, invalid date. I equally cannot click until I clear this error message by pressing ESC to return to the default value. Now I can click and I can cancel. Okay, so to all date fields and all number fields, we've added that functionality to prevent data entry errors. So now, going back to my sales demonstration, I'm going to change this to April. In the sales rep section, I'm going to go ahead and select my sales rep. Now the sales reps field will automatically list all sales reps from your sales rep section. So that's why we refer to these as your source sheets, because they provide data for the actual transaction sheets. So I'm going to go ahead and select the first rep. Now quick ways I can start typing. So if I type R, the template will also fill with the first sales rep that starts with the letter R. If I type J, it will also fill with the first sales rep that starts with a J. Next, I indicate the customer. So I can click the drop down, select the customer, then I select the product. Now this is equally a drop down list, so it's going to list all products from my product section. Now once you select the product here, the template will automatically return two values. The unit price, that's the selling price you entered in the product section, and it will tell you the balance you have for sale. So right now, you know you cannot sell more than 30 units. If I change this to product 2, you notice the two fields will automatically update. The unit price I proposed is 400, and I cannot sell more than 10. I have only 10 in my store. If I change this to 3, it's going to do the same thing. I have only 0 in my store. So that's just for you to know you cannot exceed a certain balance. Now the unit price, this is the default price. You can always inflate it, so I can change this to 400, or you can deflate it, I can reduce it to 200. So it's just going to, once you select the product, it will by default return the default price. But you can always increase or decrease this by transaction. Now next you enter the quantity. So how many units of this product did John Random sell? So let's assume he sold 2. We have 10, so 2 is within our selling bracket. And the template will automatically calculate the total amount multiplying the two together. Now these are the mandatory fields. You simply enter the transaction dates, when it was sold, who sold it, what was sold, who it was sold to, and the value of the sale. Once you've entered all those attributes, you can click enter. The commission tracking is an optional feature. So if John Random is not getting any commission for this transaction, simply leave all the commission as the 3 commission fields blank and click on enter. So the sale, will still be stored. That's income generated, but there's going to be no commission paid to John Random for this particular sale. Now, if you want to attach a commission, all you need to do is to select the commission type. So you need to tell the template, are you paying John Random based on a quantity-based system or a value-based system? So what that means is that should the template pay Rose Random based on the 2 units quantity that was paid or based on the 800 value of the transaction? So as demonstrated earlier on in the commission section, you can pay per quantity or per value. I'm going to go ahead and select quantity. You notice it tells me that the quantity that John is eligible to is 8 based on our commission rate. So when the quantity is less than 200, there's a 1% commission. So 1% of 800 will be 8. Then I simply click on enter. So the commission value field will be blank. I simply click on enter and the sales will be added. So you notice the first row is populated with the values that I supplied. The transaction date, the sales rep, the customer that the product was sold to, the product that was sold, the quantity, the total, and then the commission by quantity. Now you notice it tells us the commission is 8. So we can confirm that. If you go to the commission section, you notice that for any quantity below 201, we're using a 1% of the total value. So 1% of 800 give us 8. Now you can change this, as I said. So let me just change this for demonstration purposes to 10, just for this demonstration. So I'm going to change this to 10. So I'm just going to type in 0.10. And once you change this, you go to, I'm just going to enter another transaction now to show how dynamic the template is. So if I go to the sales section, I'm going to enter the same transaction, but with another customer. So I'm going to add sales. I'm going to make it the April 6th. So a day before this particular day. Let's assume I forgot to enter it yesterday. I was very busy. So today I want to enter back date and enter that transaction. Next, I indicate the customer, the sales rep, then the customer, the product that was sold, product 2. Recall we entered 2 units of product 2, so I'm going to use the same 2 units of product 2. This time, if I select quantity, you notice that it's now 80 because the template recognizes that you've changed the commission rate. So instead of 1%, it's now 10%. 10% for any quantity that is below 201. So 2 is below 201, so that will be 80. Once I click enter, it's going to store that transaction. So I'm just going to go back to the commission section. I'm going to just change that back to, but that's just to demonstrate how it works. Now, when you enter commission rates, it needs to make practical sense. So for instance, notice I entered 10. Now, this doesn't make much sense because it means I'm paying people more for a lesser quantity than I am for a greater quantity, which doesn't make practical sense. I did that just for demonstration purposes. So your percentages should increase in ascending order. So the lower should be at the top and the greater should be at the bottom, meaning you're encouraging your sales rep to sell more quantities. This doesn't make any sense. I did it only for demonstration purposes. Back to the sales section, I just wanted to demonstrate how the two sections are linked together. So what you set and you define in the commission section determines the rates that will be reflected in the sales section. We've added 2 commissions now, so let's scroll to the right. We said that for the first transaction, rows random gets 80. And you notice the template has automatically sorted it. The 6th comes before the 7th, so it's at the top of the earlier transaction we entered. On the 7th, rows random gets only 8. This is what we're owing these commission individuals. We're owing these sales rep this particular amount. Now, if you go back to the sales rep section, we should see the outstanding balance has automatically increased. So the template has recognized that these people have made a sale, but they haven't been paid their respective commissions. So you notice for rows random, there is now an outstanding balance in red of 80. For John, there's an outstanding balance of 8. So recall earlier on in the video, I mentioned that the outstanding balance column is automatically generated by the template. The template will go to the sales section, sum up all the sales for each sales rep. It will go to the payment section, sum up all payments, and then subtract the 2 to get the outstanding balance. So going back to the sales reps section. So this is how you enter daily sales. You simply click on add sales, supply all the values. I'm going to enter another sale, but this is going to be for the value field. So I'm just going to click on sales rep John, just select customer, product 2. We have only 6 left, so let me just select product 1. We still have 30. Let's assume that for each of the 30, we're selling them for 20 each. We're going to sell the entire 30. So that's the value is 600,000. We're going to pay per value, and that means that this is what this sales rep is eligible to, 15,000. So once you click enter, it's going to store that transaction. And just to confirm that, so the value is 600,000. You go to the commission table, you look at your value table, where does 600,000 fall? 600,000 is greater than this, but it's less than this. So that means it falls in this particular row. So the template used 2.5% to calculate the commission due. So if the amount, for instance, was 1.5, the template would use this because 1.5 is greater than this, but it's less than this. But our total in this scenario is 600,000. So 600,000 is greater than this, but it's less than this. So we fall within these 2 rows. So that means that we're going to use 2.5%. And if we go back to our sales section, 2.5% of that particular amount, if we quickly do the math, you'd see that 2.5 times 600,000, and it gives us 15. So that's how the template arrived at the 15 commission value. And we should now see that John Random should now have an outstanding balance of 15 plus 8. So that's 15,008. So if we go to the sales rep, we should see 15,008. So that's how all sections are interconnected. The last demonstration would be our payment functionality. So just to ensure I've covered all here, so we've covered the sales. The delete, you simply click on any cell, click on delete, click on yes, and expense takes us back to the expense section. So we've covered the sales section. Moving on to the payment section, you simply click on the label payments, it takes us to that section of the template. As the label says, this is where you document your sales rep payments information. So whenever you pay your sales reps, you need to tell the template that that sales rep has been paid so as to reduce their outstanding balance. To do that, simply make use of the add payment button. It pops up a form. Indicate the date you're making the payments. I'm just going to make this May. Then you select the sales rep. Now, once you select the sales rep, the template will tell you the outstanding balance. So now you know you're owing Rose 80. If I select John, you're owing John a bit over 15. So let's assume I want to pay 10,000 from that amount. So that means that I should be owing John only 5 and 8 because I'm going to pay 10,000 from the current outstanding balance. Once you select the rep, it's going to automatically tell you how much you're owing the rep here. It's going to tell you if it's an outstanding or if it's a positive balance. So I'm going to change this back to John. So that's what we're owing John. We're paying only 10 from that. So I click enter, it's going to store the payment. So here on our data table, you can see a summary of the transaction. This is the date in which the payment was made. This is the sales rep that we paid. Before we paid the sales rep, this is what we're owing the sales rep. This is what we paid and this is what we're owing after. So for each payment, the template is going to give you a snapshot out, letting you know the before and the after. So this is what we're owing John before we made the payment. When the payment was effected, this is the current balance. So going back to the sales rep section, we should now see this as opposed to the 15. So sales, you notice it is reduced to 5,000. So that's how all sections are interconnected. From the sales rep section, you can instantly know what you owe your sales rep. The moment you clear the outstanding, so we're going to clear this 80 for Rose Random. We go to payments, step 1. We click on add payments. We enter the payment transaction. So let's assume May is our payment date. We select who we want to pay, how much we pay the individual, and then we click on enter. So you notice the summary, the date, the sales rep, before the payment, the amount that was paid, and after the payment was effected. So going back to the sales rep, we should no longer see a red on that particular row. So this record now, there's no outstanding balance. So that's a summary of how you add your daily sales and how you add commission payments. Lastly, we just go to our reports. So no more data entry. Now we're just going to show you the monthly automatically generated reports by this template. To view that, you simply click on the reports label. Once you do, it takes you to that section. The template has a total of 7 reports. The first report is the sales report. This just enables you to view transactions on a monthly basis. Now going back to the sales section, when you start using this template, you're going to have data across multiple months, across multiple years. So this section is going to be clustered with so many records. And it's going to become quite stressful to be able to sum up for a particular month scrolling through multiple transactions. So what this report does is that it enables you to filter the records in the sales section by month and by year. So once you click on it, notice it automatically opens up the report. At the top, we have 2 filters. You can filter by year and you can filter by month. All our transactions are in April. So what I'm going to do is to quickly add another transaction maybe in the month of May so that you can be able to see how the filter functionality works. Well, I'm going to backdate. Let me enter for March. I'm going to enter the 3rd. I can change the dates, the sales rep, the customer, the product that was sold. We have 0, so I'm not going to use that product. I'm going to use product 2. We still have X. Now let's assume we sold 2 from the 6, and there is no commission. So we're not paying any commission for that transaction. So I've sorted it in chronological order. So now if I go to my reports and I click on the first report, you notice that under months, I now have 2 months I can select from. So I can either choose to see only March transactions. You notice it's going to hide any other months. So we have only 1 transaction in the month of March. So I know in the month of March is the total value of all that was sold and there's no commission due. If I want to see for April, I just simply click on April and it tells me in the month of April there were 3 transactions and this is the total value. a bit over 600,000. This is the total commission that I paid per quantity and by value. So you can easily generate a summary on a monthly basis and on a yearly basis. So that's the first report. It's just your monthly sales summary. It enables you filter the transactions in the sales section for any year and for any months. Report number 1. Now report number 2 is a sales rep report. So this just enables you select a particular sales rep and see a summary for their transaction. So right now, if you go to the sales section, you notice that our transactions cut across 2 sales reps. So the first 2 are for Rose, the second 2 for John. Later on, when you have surplus data, you're going to have multiple transactions per sales rep. So here it's hard for you to be able to know which action is for which. So this report enables you, at the top, you filter by sales rep, year or months, and it shows you only transactions for that particular sales rep. Right now, it's showing all. So all sales rep, all years, all months. But if I want to see for only, for instance, Rose, all I need to do is select Rose, click on OK, and this is only Rose's summary. So the total amount that I am supposed to pay Rose now is 80. This is the total value of all that has been sold by Rose in the month of March, and April. And if I want to see for a particular month, I can equally by year, and let's say I want to see only March transactions for Rose. So it tells me that Rose, there's only 1 transaction in March. Product 2, this is the quantity, this is the value, and she was eligible to no commission. If I want to see for April, so this is March, I can do the same thing. Click on April, click on OK, and April only 1 transaction, this is the total. So this just enables you generate a report for each of your sales rep. So they can be able to see your best performing sales rep. You can be able to compare and see what was sold on a monthly basis per sales rep. If you need, you can always print this out or export it as a PDF and then give to the respective sales rep. So I can change this back to John. So you can filter by 3 criteria: by the sales rep, by the year, and also by the month. Now, the third is the commission report. Now, this enables you to see the total commission that you're supposed to pay as a business on a monthly basis. So all it does is at the top, you can be able to filter for a particular year. The template will automatically sort for every calendar month. So we have only 2 calendar months, March and April. But later on, when you have data, this is going to span from January up until December. So it's going to do an aggregate total. The total sales in the month of March is 800. From the 800, you owe nobody any commission. The total sales in the month of April is a bit over 600,000. This is the commission you're supposed to pay. And later on in the future, you can filter this by year once you have transactions for past years. So I'm quickly going to enter a sale for 2018 just to show how that works. And ignore the validity of the data. I'm just entering random figures just to have data to show you in the reports. So let's assume that 1 is sold. Commission can be by value. Click on enter. So I've added, that's automatically sorted it. This is the transaction that I just added. So now if I go to my reports and my commission report, you will notice that under year, if you select all, it's going to combine 2018 and 2019 data, all the years in your sales section. But we don't want that. We want to see this on a yearly basis. So if I click on only 2019, you know that it's going to hide the December 2018 transaction. So you can print this out on a yearly basis. If I select only 2018, it's going to show me only 2018 summary. So in 2018, we have transactions across only 1 month, December. This is the summary of the transaction. So as you add additional years and additional months, this drop-down list will give you more options to select from. All is going to combine everything together. So if for any reason you just want to see the total amount you've made across all the years, you can filter that way. Now that we have 2018, you notice that all the reports now equally have 2018. Okay, so that's how the template works. All the reports have the criteria that you provided. There we go. So Rose Random, product 2. But here, if I select March, tells me there was no transaction, Rose Random, May, March. So that's how the template works. We click on all, it's just going to show all transaction across all years, across all months. Now the 4th transaction is the expense summary. Works the same as the sales summary. It just summarizes information from the expense section. It enables you to filter by year and by months. So the sales rep weekly commission is a report that is generated on a weekly basis. So it just shows you the commission due per sales rep. Now it works on a weekly system because that's the most common payment system we have in most retail outlets. Sales reps are paid at the end of the week for transactions made in that current week. So how it works is it's made up of 3 sections. The first section is the data entry section. This is where you tell the template the week in which you want to pull transactions for, and then you select the sales rep from the drop-down list. The next section, the template will automatically list, so this lists all your sales reps, so for instance, Rose. The next section will automatically tell you the total sales within the specified week for the specified sales rep and the total commission that is due. And the bottom section, we just break down a summary of that transaction. Now, if I recall correctly, we had a transaction for Rose Random, I think December 2018. So let me enter that. Am I correct? 2018 of December. So change that to 2018 and I'm correct. So December 2018, if we go to the sales section, we can confirm that there was a transaction on the 7th of December for Rose Random. Now, going back to that report, once you enter a date, what the template does is that it will automatically, so if I enter 07/12/2018, the template will automatically on the right tell you the week duration. So it tells you that this week, so this particular day, the week starts from the 3rd of December and it ends on the 9th of December. So the transaction is going to show you these transactions that took place within this time frame from the 3rd to the 9th. And within that time frame is telling us that this is the total sale and this is the total commission that is due. If you want to see a breakdown, you simply click on refresh and this is a breakdown. This is the dates, which falls within this date frame. This is the value, which is this. This is the quantity that was sold and this is the value. So that's how the template works. Now I'm going to add another transaction just to show you how dynamic this is for this same date frame. So the 4th of December 2018. So I'm just going to make that 4/12/2018. The same sales rep Rose. I can select any customer, any product. We don't have. Let me use, do we have of this product? Yes, we still have 3 left. So let's assume that I sold 1 and I sold it for 10,000. This is going to be quantity. I sold it for 10,000. Enter. There we go. So I've added another transaction. So within that week, there are 2 transactions, 4th to the 7th. So all I need to do is in the report section, I can enter any in that week. So I can enter the 4th of December 2018, for instance. And once I do, the template will automatically tell me this date, the first day of the week, is the 3rd. The last day of the week is the 9th. This is going to show me transactions within this period. And the total sum of transactions, total sales within this week is a bit over 10,000. And there's a 10% commission, 1%, So this sales rep is eligible to 104. And once I click refresh, I can see a breakdown of how this 10,000 was generated. The first transaction was 10, second transaction was 4. And I can do this for any date range. So go to my sales section. For instance, we have transactions on the 6th of April. So if I enter the 6th of April in that report, so 6th April, Rose Random, you notice it tells me this is the total that was sold from the 1st of April to the 7th of April. So this is the date frame for this date. And once I click refresh, I can see a breakdown. There was only 1 transaction for that particular sales rep. Now if I go back to my sales section, and what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to, for demonstration purposes, make these 2 transactions the same sales rep so that we can just have multiple data in the report. So if I go to my reports and I refresh that report for that particular day, if I recall the dates correctly, which is the 6th of April 2019. So if I do the 6th of April 2019, you notice that the value is increased. So now the total sales from the 1st of April, which is the week start date, the weekend date is the 7th of April. So that's 7 days in that week. This is the total value of what Rose Random sold. This is the total commission that she's eligible to. To see a breakdown of this, you simply click on refresh. It tells you that this was generated from 2 transactions, the first and then for the second. So that's how this report works. You just simply enter any date. For instance, if I just enter today's date, once you enter the date, it's going to tell you the week start date, which is the 2nd, the weekend date. But you can already see 0 here, so you know that this week Rose Random has not sold anything. Has John Random sold anything? No, it's equally a 0. But if I go to my sales section and I add a transaction for today, and I can just select John Random, any customer, the only product we have to sell, I'm just going to make this 20,000, and select a quantity-based commission system. So now I've added a transaction for today. So if I go back to my reports, and I go to my weekly reports, you notice that that has updated. For today, if I change that to today, the week start date is on the 2nd of December. And the weekend date is tomorrow, which is the 8th of December. The total sales amount within this period is 20,000. The transaction I just entered, this is the total commission. To see the breakdown, I click on refresh. This is a breakdown. Transaction was today. This is the value of the transaction, the quantity, and the commission that the sales rep is eligible to. So that's how this report works. Now you notice that whenever I leave this section and I go back, the date automatically changes. So functionalities have been added such that the template will automatically enter today, based on today, the week start date. So this week we're currently in, today is the 7th of December. This week starts on the 2nd of December. Dynamic field. The values we keep changing as we progress on a daily basis. So if I enter, for instance, today's date, 7th, you notice once I navigate away and I navigate back, it changes back to the 2nd of December. Week start date, week end date. That's that report. Now we have 2 more reports. They work exactly the same way. This is a sales rep report. So ideally, this is where you select a particular sales rep and then you see transactions only for that sales rep. So you know what you're supposed to pay the sales rep for that particular week. So here I'm supposed to pay the sales rep $200. But the next report aggregates everything together so that as a business, I can know the total amount I'm paying in commissions for all of my sales reps. Once you click is the total weekly commission. What's exactly the same way, you enter the week, any day in the week, and it tells you the week start date and the week end dates, the total sales amount, total commission. Once you click refresh, you see a breakdown below. Now, if you have multiple sales reps, it's going to combine everything together. To demonstrate that, if I go back to my sales section, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change this back to John Random for demonstration purposes. So now we have 2 transactions for John Random. I'm going to change this to the 5th so that it falls within the same time frame. And John Random, Rose Random, and I'm just going to change this to Mary Random. Okay, these are the 3 within the same week. So and the week is the 6th of April 2019. So if I go to my total commission and I enter the 6th of April, you notice it tells me this starts on the 1st and ends. So this is the duration of the week. Once I click refresh, it should break down the transactions. So you notice now we have multiple sales reps being displayed. For this week, which starts on the 1st of April up until the 7th of April, this is the total value of sales that has been made. Commission sales, without commission, all the sales that you've made within that week. And from this sales, this is what you owe your sales rep, all of your sales rep. The breakdown of this 15,088 is here. It's cut across 3 transactions. The first, you owe this individual 80. The second, you owe this individual 8. And the third, you owe this individual 15. The sum of 3 gives us 15,088. So this just enables you to have a snapshot to know on a weekly basis what you got versus what you paid out as commission. And as I said, you can generate this on a weekly basis, print it out file, or export it as a PDF. The last report is the profit and loss statement. So this just enables you to have a snapshot of your performance. Profit and loss statement enables you to know how you're performing as a business, what you sold versus what you sold, what you spent on recurrent expenses, and what you generated in terms of revenue. So 3 sections: the revenue section, the cost of revenue, that's the cost of goods sold, and lastly, your recurrent expenses. Now at the bottom, we've added a field so you can equally see on a monthly basis the commission that is due. So what you need to do is to click on the refresh button. You don't do any data entry here. Once you click on refresh, it's going to generate a summary on a monthly basis, and it's stacked beside each other so you can easily do month-to-month comparison. So you can compare January versus February versus March and so on. Right now we have transactions only in March and April, and I think we also have in December. There we go. We also have transactions in December. In March, we can see that we sold products worth 800. The cost of the product was 500, so we made a profit of only 300. There were no recurrent expenses, so our net profit is 300, and there is no tax or commission eligible. In April, on the other end, we sold a bit over 600. The cost was 5,000, a bit over 5,000. This is our gross profit, which is the difference between the two. And if I scroll to the bottom, that's our net profit, and this is the commission we need to pay our sales rep. So you can be able to compare month to month. Makes it very easy. And lastly, we have for December also. This is what we sold. This is the cost of what we sold. This is our gross profit, which is the difference between the two. This is a breakdown of all expenses and then the overall total. Now, you notice that we don't have so many expenses. We have only one, which is in February for advertising Facebook. I'm just going to add another for demonstration purposes. Month of April 2019. What I need to do is to go to my expense section. So sales, add expense, new expense, and I said I'm going to make this April. This can be, for instance, salaries. So the admin staff, let's assume we pay 50. We're paying for only 1 month, so 50 in the month of April 2019. Now, once we do that, if we go back to our reports, profit and loss statement, we click on refresh, we should now see 50 for salaries in the month of April. So that's how the profit and loss statement works. And at the bottom, it's going to give you the difference and then the total commission that is due. Now, recall earlier on in the video, I mentioned that for your expenses, you can change the expense type. So these are the default categories. But let's assume I want to add a new category. I simply go to my profit and loss statement. This is where you make that modification. So all I need to do here is, for instance, internet subscription. So I'm adding a new category. So these are the categories supported by the template, a total of 9 categories. If I add internet subscription here, if we go back to our report, sales expense, we should now see internet subscription listed at the bottom. So that's how you modify values. So if, for instance, I don't like rent, I want to replace this with office space, I just double click, type office space, and it automatically updates. If I go to my expenses, we should now see office space. Okay, so that's how you modify the values here. You add new values and you can delete existing values. So that's a summary of the template. I've covered all the reports. Thanks and do take care.